Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Welcome back to Paris History avec a Hemingway, and today we are talking about Juliette Drouet, which I cannot say that name, and Claudine's been trying to help me say it, but it's fine. All you need to know is Juliette, and she was a big part of Victor Hugo's life, and I'll let Claudine tell you more about that.
Yes, she was. And actually, I was we do a book of the month club, and I picked this wonderful book by David Downey. And it's basically about the Romantic period in Paris. And I knew about her, and I've read this book years ago, but I was rereading it, and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do one about Juliette because her story is really interesting.
I want you to say her name 3 times fast.
Juliette Drouet.
That was only one. Try it at home, people.
Try it at home. Yes, it's a hard one. But she was born April 10th, 1806. She was born in the Brittany region, and she was the youngest child of 4 kids, and both of her parents would die before she turned 2 years old.
Oh, that's sad.
So sad. So she was sent to live with her uncle, René Henri Drouet, in Paris. And but he wasn't really a great caregiver. He kind of, even just as a child, he didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to her. So he decided to send her off to a convent school where 2 of her aunts were already also there as nuns, so they could be there, keep an eye on her.
Perfect. Family tradition.
But she was a little bit too headstrong, and even as a young child, she was getting into trouble all the time. And causing problems when, she was back with René, her uncle. He basically didn't, he didn't pay a lot of attention to her, so she kind of did anything she wanted. So those things didn't, she looks back at her childhood rather fondly because of that.
Do whatever she wanted.
Yeah, but it wasn't exactly a good thing for her, to go to the convent. They didn't really like that. So she was there for a while. Then she ended up, having this free reign with her uncle as well. But at 16 years old, she was actually presented to the Archbishop of Paris. And so she was able to convince him that she wouldn't be a very good candidate for this postulant post that they wanted her to take. So he actually, agreed with her. And so she got out of it. So she didn't have to spend her life, dedicated to the church.
That's so funny. He was like, yeah, you're not great. You should probably leave.
Yeah, this probably isn't going to go over so well. So she returned to her uncle. At this time she's 16 years old. And she was even more of a handful. But she started meeting a bunch of the different authors and artists and actors of Paris. So she would hang out with them all the time, out, probably, boozing it up and, being crazy. And so at that time, she met the sculptor James Pradier in 1825. She was just 19 years old.
She's having a good time.
Yeah. So, and she was very beautiful. Like she was very beautiful. She had this really great fashion sense that she would always always look really good. And so basically she was trying to, find ways to pay for, buying more clothes. And, all of these finer things in life. So, but he was so drawn to her that he wanted to capture her in his art. So the two, he ended up sculpting her, and the two began an affair pretty quickly.
No surprises there.
No surprises, for many of these artist stories. But he was actually commissioned to do one of the statues. It's in Place de la Concorde, and I'll put a picture on my website. But the Strasbourg statue he used her as the model.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the face of the sculpture is Juliette. The two ended up having a child. Her name was Claire, that he refused to acknowledge or take any responsibility for at the time. She wanted to marry him, and he said he was not going to do it.
Boo.
Yeah, he wanted to move his way up in society, and she was not going to be the one that was going to get him there. So he, basically just pretended, just acted like, he was not the father of this child. But she would actually later end up Claire, the daughter, would actually spend more time with her father than she would with her mother, because she took on a different sort of trade, we could call it.
Prostitution.
So Juliette, she really liked, having all of these finer things. And so she decided she began to work as a courtesan.
Fancy
to help fund some of her, shopping. She always had one of the newest fashion, and she was always noticed, because of this. So in 1828, she began to act on stage, and she would perform at the Théâtre du Parc de Bruxelles in Paris. Her roles were very small. She would usually only have one or two lines, but she stood out on stage because she was so beautiful. And so she was popular for people wanted to come and see her, and just to basically be able to see her, even though she wasn't really doing much acting.
Mm-hmm. They just wanted to look
creepy.
Pretty.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So in 1933, she had a role in Victor Hugo play that was Lucretius Borgia. He was taken by her, of course, as soon as he saw her as well, but he wouldn't pursue her or do anything until 6 months later.
He took his time.
Yeah. His wife, Adele, had even sent her a letter saying that her husband would like to meet her.
Wait, the wife arranged this?
Yeah, the wife sent her a letter. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So for 6 months after they met, they kept it very friendly. But he couldn't resist the beautiful Juliette and her fire. She had a very fiery temperament. And so she was always kind of, people were even more drawn to her because of that. So she was known at the time as like a temptress and a dominatrix, but just because of her personality.
I mean, that sounds like a double hitter, in the man world. She was smart, she was manipulative, she was gorgeous. Dangerous woman,
yeah. But she was more with him, she was very submissive, as she babied him and just treated him as the idol that he was at that time. He was pretty big at that point. She called him, the nickname she had for him was Toto, which is kind of funny. But he basically wanted to keep her all to himself. He didn't want her working as a courtesan anymore. She still had, the more things she bought, the more she was working as a courtesan and on the stage, the more in debt she was constantly going into. So Hugo ended up actually paying off all of her debt, but it came with a very high price. He set her up an apartment that was just 12 Rue Sainte-Anastase, very, very near where he lived at Place de Vosges. She lived on the 4th floor. It was a very small place, but she wasn't allowed to leave unless he was with her.
Wait, what? She became a prisoner? Yeah.
And so she basically, she had to stop all of her other things. She had to be faithful to him. If, they wonder, historians wonder if maybe she did kind of stray and take in a few people, when she wasn't with Hugo. But she was very good at it, because they haven't found any evidence that she ever did stray away from him.
Wow. I wonder if anybody keeping watch.
Yeah, I don't know. They were actually like secretly kind of quote unquote married in 1839. It was basically just like a vow exchange, and it was her basically saying that she would never leave him.
Well, where's his wife during all this?
Oh, she was back. She was having her own little thing, which we'll get to. But he hired her as a private secretary so they could spend even more time together. And he would have her copying, like basically copying every single thing he wrote, like all of his manuscripts. So he always had his own copy of it.
That sounds
So,
exhausting.
now we have copy machines, thankfully.
He had a mistress.
He had a mistress. So she would spend all of her time doing that. She rarely would come over to the family's home in Place des Vosges. And she basically, if she did, she'd have to enter through the back staircase, like the servant entrance. His wife Adele was very aware of their relationship. And at the time, she had her own going that Hugo was very aware of. She was having an affair with his former very close friend. His name was it was Christophe Sainte-Beuve, and the two of them. She was also a writer, and the two of them basically decided that they would have an open relationship.
Well, I mean, that's very French.
Yeah, very French. I mean, that was the 19th century.
I think that's still going on very much today.
Yeah, I think so. But she actually liked Juliette, and she actually put in her will that if something for her children to look after her in case Victor Hugo died before her.
That's really nice of her.
Yeah, yeah. So he expected her to stay faithful to him, but his rules were, of course, a little bit different.
Mm.
Yeah. So he began an affair with this woman named Léonie Donné, and she at one point gave him an ultimatum saying he needed to break it off with Juliette. He said he wouldn't, and so he broke it off with her. And so Léonie decided to package all of the letters that Victor Hugo wrote to her and send them in one package to Juliette to see.
Oh, so catty.
So catty. And so, Juliette looks at these letters and he's using a lot of the same, paragraphs and phrases and stuff that he does in the letters to Juliette.
Whoops.
And so, but instead of pushing her away, it actually just drew her to him even more.
Oh, she liked it.
Yeah, she liked it. And so, but at the same time, this was we're getting close to when Victor Hugo gets exiled, so it actually works out in her favor. But at the time, he would actually made Juliette write to him a letter every single day, sometimes multiple times a day.
I mean, it's like texting, he was a control freak.
Yeah, exactly. Which is basically, we do the same thing now, I guess. But she wrote over 22,000 letters.
Wow.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of them have been published, and it's really interesting to read. One of them I was reading where she got mad at him because he said her handwriting looked stupid and childish. And she kind of let him have it.
Oh God, this is such a fascinating relationship.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It went for 50 years.
50 years.
50 years. It lasted 50 years.
That's some love affair.
Yeah, but so shortly after the end of this affair that he had with Léonie, he was forced to exile from France. He was really against Napoleon III, and he was very outspoken about it. And so he knew he needed to get out before he was forced to get out. So Juliette took care of everything. She ended up getting him fake papers, finding him a place to stay, setting up all of his travel and everything. And he went off to first he went to Brussels. She followed him, and he ended up getting her everywhere he had gone. He'd end up having to go 3 separate places before he could return to France. But there was always a small house near him that she would stay at. So she was always there. They were able at that point, because Adele and his children only very frequently ever came to visit him. So they were able to kind of have a little bit of a normal relationship in some ways, because, they were so far from France and Adele.
Yeah, they kind of had like their married life.
They had their little married life. He was exiled from 1852 to 1870. And, he went from Brussels to the island of Jersey to Guernsey. And she ended up, right after they came back, Adele, or right before they came back, Adele passed away in 1868.
Oh no.
Yeah, so a few years later, Juliette was able to move in with Victor to his home that is on what we call today Victor Avenue Victor Hugo. I don't think they named it after him when he was alive, but it was in his home. If you look at it today, I'll post a picture of it, but there's actually, a lot of times in the Parisian buildings and you walk in and there'll be like, an angel over the door or something. It's actually his face over the door of the
I guess
building.
it's kind of creepy. I've been there.
Yeah. So it was 124 Avenue Victor Hugo. And so they were living there. Her daughter Claire died when she was just 20 years old. So she was so upset she couldn't even attend it. But Hugo and Pradier actually led the funeral procession.
Whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a sweet little thing to do. But Hugo and Juliette, they had this relationship lasted for 50 years. And on May 11th, 1883, she died at their home, the same home that Adele died in. And then they think that she died of stomach cancer, and she was 77 years old.
She lived a long time too.
She did live a long time. Hugo was really destroyed by it. He thought that, he had his heart was given to two things, his writing and Juliette.
So she was his true love.
Yeah. He wanted to attend the funeral, but he was advised that it wasn't a good idea for him to do that. She was buried in the North Cemetery of Saint-Mandé next to her daughter. And so
that's so sad.
Yeah, and Hugo died 2 years later.
He died of heartbreak, of course.
Yeah, and he was when he died. I've written about it on my website. I have it on there. I'll put a link in the show notes. That his funeral, it was like one of the biggest things that Paris had ever seen. Like it was a huge procession, and they took him all the way through town, and I mean he was and he was buried up at the Pantheon.
That's so cool. I want to see like the paintings of that.
Yeah, it was a pretty huge deal. But she's basically has like this cult-like following now. Like there's people that are just like obsessed with her story and her life. And it's kind of interesting of all, like, how different people stand out, when people are taken by. She's just like has this cult-like following in Paris, in France.
I didn't know anything about her. Did he work her into his books and stuff?
No, he did work in Notre Dame du Paris, or the Hunchback of Notre Dame. He ended up the Esmeralda was basically he created from his wife. And Quasimodo is Saint Beuve, who was his former friend that was having the affair with his wife.
Well, that's a great comeback.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. On the walk that we took a few weekends ago in Odeon, that we actually walked by one of the places that Saint Beuve used to live. So it's kind of it all comes together.
It all comes together at the end. Yeah. Juliette.
But yeah, 50 years. I mean, to be, a mistress for 50 years, he did have quite a few different women at different points. He was quite the ladies' man, and he basically really got around.
But she was his favorite.
He was his favorite. And I was reading in the David Downey's book that he had gone to the museum, Victor Hugo, in Place des Vosges. And he had asked, like, why weren't there any paintings of her? And they said there was only one painting of her, and it's never on view.
Why?
I don't know.
They should put it on view. Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean, she was true love.
Yeah, and they have like some of his quills that he used to write, and he was able to go see a bunch of this different stuff that they don't ever have on display, which was really interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I found the museum very dark. I went there on one of the heritage days, when everything's free.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't want to stand in line to go in the Hotel de Ville and all that. And actually, there was no line for poor Victor Hugo. So I was like, I'll just go in there. And it was interesting. I mean, it's really pretty, but it's kind of dark.
It is. Yeah. It's kind of dark and everything. I mean, I love the fact that the walls are painted red, of course, but it's all quite dark, like his bedroom. In the back, it was like, I mean, it was kind of hard to take pictures of because it was so dark.
Yeah, I'm like, how did you live like that?
Yeah, and then they have his bed, and they have like like the bed that he died in, and his desk that he would write, Les Mis and all of those things on there. It's been closed for a couple years now, longer than it was supposed to, of course, with COVID, but it should be reopening this spring. And they were in the back at the courtyard. They were putting in like a little cafe and doing some renovations. So, we could maybe when we go there, we'll have to look in for the door that Juliette used to use to go.
Yeah, we have to ask to see her painting.
Yeah.
Show us the painting.
Yeah.
I feel like all these courtesans were just old school, like sugar babies. They were the original, like, I need a sugar daddy. I want some nice stuff.
And there were so many of them. I mean, once you start like peeling back and looking, there's like, I mean, there's, I don't know, just 20, 30 of them that I keep coming across.
Yeah.
Courtesans at different times. And
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the courtesan was different from a prostitute because they were fancier?
Yeah, it was basically like, there was there was the Laureates, because they were around Notre Dame de Lorette Church. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of, there was what was it called? The grisette, I think was the other one. And that was all basically different rankings. So the grisette was like lower than a laureate. And the grisette were basically just the girls that were, they got that name because of their gray uniforms, because they were like seamstresses and worked in like the laundry biz. And they were called grisettes because of that. And then basically they were just ones that like, they kind of like to, get paid for having sex because it gave them a little extra money. They weren't really, they still had their day job, but this was like, oh, if they wanted a little extra money, this is what they did. And then it kind of went up from there. So then like, a prostitute, and then like the highest ranking was basically a courtesan. Because I think that it was basically, you were like the prostitute with class.
Yeah. You were the prostitute that didn't need a second job.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like where we put Julia Roberts in that from Pretty Woman.
I guess she was a courtesan because that was her only job.
Yeah, maybe so. And she didn't start out with the best clothes, but she ended up, getting pretty fancy there at the end.
I was saying she had a good sugar daddy.
Yeah. Or my other favorite, Dolly Parton, and one of the greatest movies, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
I've never seen that, but I love Dolly Parton.
Oh my God, you have to see it. I remember my mother taking us actually to the theater to see it, and we were children. Like, is this what we should be seeing? But it's not like, I mean, it's her and Burt Reynolds, and it's actually really cute. It's actually really cute. And I mean, it's nothing like racy or anything, but it's pretty funny.
I love Dolly Parton. We went to Dollywood. My parents took us there for vacation.
Oh my goodness.
It was their own theme park in like Tennessee or something. I don't know. It was fun. Good time. Awesome. Good times.
That was in that movie at the end is when she sings I Will Always Love You, that later Whitney Houston covered, but I still love the Dolly version the best.
Wait, Dolly's the original?
Yeah, she wrote that song.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so she was pretty happy when Whitney Houston sang it, and it sold so well.
Wow, Dolly's always been a businesswoman.
She has, yeah.
We love Dolly. Yeah. Dolly for president.
Yeah, check out Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
I love how we went from Juliette and Victor Hugo to Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
I know. Sometimes we veer off course.
Yeah, they're learning a lot from this podcast.
Yeah, but she died May 11th, and so she just died. She just died. The anniversary of her death is tomorrow.
But not Dolly.
Not Dolly. Juliette.
Juliette. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast and for giving us feedback. We love to hear from you. And we also love when you join our virtual tour. Every Sunday, we tour a different part of Paris, and Claudine gives you live history over Zoom as we walk with you. So join us every week for that. Tell your friends, send us a message on Instagram, and tune in next week.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's Bleu, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at claudinehemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.